Hello and welcome to the Tarkus Zone. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be discussing Palworld and we're going to be talking about the early access roadmap. We're going to briefly go over this information. We're going to discuss a little bit of what I'm thinking about it when we get to the various items that they've got here on the list. I do want to say that I've enjoyed this game immensely. I have found it very enjoyable. I will also say that when you get to about the 45th level mark, the game kind of like plateaus. There's not a lot to do at end game currently right now. So if you're really into like building your own base and being able to configure a defense around your base, automated processes within a game, like the pals doing things for you, this game is really good for that. The dungeon crawls are good. The world boss interactions are good. The capturing mechanic of increasing your the pals that you can own that can work in your base, or even the pals that you can own to fight with you in battle. I would say that they did pretty good with their current state of their game. It's very popular. People bought millions of copies of it. Right now, what I do know is the development team is looking to hire lots of people to help them push this roadmap forward. They have admitted multiple times in the last month, I would say, on multiple forums and on their Discord and to articles that I've read, that the publisher are basically saying, yeah, we're overwhelmed. We didn't realize that our product was going to be this well liked, this well received, and we know that we've only given you the bite of the apple at this time, and that if you want the whole thing, we've got to implement what we want in the roadmap, but we need people to work for us to make that happen. So they're in the hiring stage. So that's always a good thing when a publisher or a development team is hiring new talent to help them with their game. So let's just go over it briefly, and then we'll discuss. I'll tell you what my thoughts are when we get to things. Currently, there's numerous bugs that have been identified, and they are prioritizing the fixes. That's par for the course for any developer or publisher. Sometimes a world date may experience rollbacks. Now, I haven't seen that much. Well, I'm on a private server currently, and we haven't seen much rollbacking. The person that's running our private server is doing server saves, so that if there are rollbacks, they're not so bad. We could probably just load up from a previous save. The loading screen may not load. Okay, we're just going to go to the next. The improvements to implement ASAP. Okay, key configuration improvements. I don't know really what that means. Probably allowing you to configure your server, or maybe configure the UI better. I'm not really sure what that means. Improvements to base, PAL, AI, and pathing. Yeah, they're going to need to work on that, and I think that's part of where they need to bring some talent to their team to help them with that, because currently right now the game does have problems with pathing and AI, what they're supposed to be doing. The programming around what each pal's supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. The game is plagued with the pals kind of getting hung up on things, clipping walls, clipping whatever you build, and then they sit there and they starve. Or you'll get just a glitch in the matrix where they'll all just sit there and starve, and then the pathing of where they're supposed to be to where they're going, they'll get clipped, they'll stand there and starve. I mean, it's annoying. And I find that there are ways to play the game to get around that annoying aspect of the game. Is do an open base concept. Put all your pals on one level, make it big enough, the footprint big enough, so that they can move from point A to point B efficiently across the workforce, and do it all on one plane, one level. And what happens with this game is people try to trick the system to go multiple tiers in their building and put workshops up. and through the floors, or they'll have their fields outside, but yet the pathing needs to come back into the building, and everything kind of glitches out. I did a video on that where I had my workshops on the 3rd floor and my fields on the 2nd floor, and then I had other things on the 1st floor, and that was a bloody nightmare, from the pals getting caught in the stairs, to falling off the building, to just hating my existence because of the pathing necessary for it to all work good. So when I got rid of that concept, the three-tier concept, and I've seen people do it on my server, I've seen people doing it, and I can just watch the weird pathing. What I ended up doing was, to fix this, is I went with one, I think I went with, it was 8 by 10. My foundation was 8 by 10, built walls like a box, a store. And then within that one plane, because you even can put your PAL box on the foundations. So put your foundations down first, then center the PAL box in the center of your project, put it right there, put a feed hopper right at the spawn where you bring your pals in. When you bring pals into your workforce, they get dropped. Put your feed box right there where you drop them. So if you have to pull them out of the workforce because they're gummed up and they're starving, as soon as you drop them back in, they'll just eat and go on to what they were doing. All right, let's move on to the planned future updates. PvP, I don't know how that's going to go with this game. I've seen pros and cons, reading articles, looking at what people's opinion of this was. People hate the concept. There are people that are hater on the fact that they want to add PvP to this game, that they believe the game will be destroyed from it. And I would, based on what I felt in other PvP survival games, I would agree. But if they normalize it somehow, or make it so that you can decide to, have a PvP existence or a non-PvP existence, meaning you can have your server just a PvE server, or have just zones that are PvP that people can enter and do. That works well too. The raid bosses, end game content. This game's really lacking on end game content right now. They really need to get on that. I am 45th level in the game, and for the last, no, I'm not, I'm 47th level, but at 45, that's where I felt the game started to be stagnant. When I hit 45, I was like, okay, what do I do now? And for the last few levels, that's all I've been doing, is bouncing from world boss to world boss to world boss to get as much experience as I can. I want to try to get to 50, but it's been a grind, and they've got to add some content to the game on the back end. They unfortunately, you would think that games would have learned from this. Like New World didn't learn from it, because when New World came out, they had no end game content, and they were like, oh, it's going to take people 3 to 4 weeks to get to end game. We got plenty of time to implement it, and people were at end game within 3 days. Same thing with this game. People rushed to the end game, and now you got people on the forum saying, well, geez, I just bought a game that I only could play for a week because there's nothing to do. Well, we kind of rushed it, build some buildings, do some neat little design things with buildings, I guess, is to, eat your time away. But, if you're going to just run to the end game, and the fact being is the game doesn't have really end game, then you're going to be sitting at your keyboard waiting for it to be added, which they plan to do. And PvP will add to that end game port of it too. Will people have, people will have things, other people to fight. So that gives you something to do while you're waiting for the other content. So if they can implement the PvP timely and they do it right. Now they got a PAL arena, PvP for pals. So I'm not really sure if that's just a standalone that you basically go up to some interface and you say, okay, I want to use this PAL, stick that in, and the pals themselves just fight until it ends, where you're not actually in the battle. It's your PAL going after another PAL in a closed arena environment. I mean, that sounds interesting, but right now, there's not that many PAL features. There's not like you can detailed out or customize the PAL in any way to me, if you would tell me that they're going to do this PAL versus PAL thing, you're going to see that the same PALs are just going to be fighting each other, and it's going to come down to the person with the last hit. Because right now the system does not allow for that much customization of what's going on at the PAL level. You know what I mean? So I don't know how that's going to work. So the Steam Xbox crossplay, okay, whatever. Various Xbox features. I mean, when it comes to me and consoles and gimping your game for consoles, that's always been a nail in the coffin for a lot of games. What they do is when they try to bring it to console, they then dumb down the features so that people can do it on the console, and then all your computer players are just like, well, what's going on here? You had all these robust features, and then you just got rid of them all because you've got to make your game playable with 6 buttons. And that's always been a problem with games, is when they try to add the crossplay and they dumb down their game, and then people just leave it and they're like, this is ridiculous. You're opening your game up to a different market, and you're leaving those people behind that liked your game the way it was. So hopefully they don't go down that rabbit hole with dumbing down their game. Server transfers and migrations, what they want to do is make it so that you can globally move from one server to another and bring over your process or your progress. So what it is I don't know how the building aspects will be. Like if I built on one server my home, and then I decide to transfer to another server and it brings over my entire kit, does my home go with me? I don't know how they're going to do that. Or what if somebody else is at that location and there'd be a problem with that? So I don't know how they're going to do that, but their hope is to allow people to say, if it's not working out for you at one server, you could jump to another server and bring over all your progress. Improvements to the building system. Yeah, I mean, any building game really should be always working on implementing new things to the building system, new components for angles, new decor. People really like the decor. I like the decor. So that's just icing on the cake if they can do some improvements with that. Then they want to add new islands, pals, boxes, and technologies. That makes sense, to move into more technologies, other bosses, other pals, new islands. Now, I know the raid bosses, and I kind of went over, skipped over that real quick at the top here, because I wanted to talk about the raid bosses in the endgame content. They got an opportunity here to make this kind of like a World of Warcraft grind, where you might need 4 other people to take on a raid boss, but then that raid boss drops components that are unique to that boss, and then they'll use those components to upgrade something, either in your personal kit, your armor, your weapons, and whatnot. I mean, this game really lacks in specializations to components on your body, meaning that when you get to level 50, you pretty much got the same thing as the guy next to you at level 50. There's no uniqueness, really, because the tech tree is so bland for personalization that you basically are just the same clone. The only makes you different than the guy next to you is the pals you pull out and how you've leveled them, within their special leveling. So right now, the game, to me, is kind of like, the Clone Wars, because when you get to 50, pretty much everyone's using the same kit, the same rollout. There's no customization. So by adding raid bosses, they can open that up so that there might be a lot of things that you can make with the components you get from the raid bosses that another player might not have, because it makes you unique that you are able to go out with a team and defeat those raid bosses. So that's just my thought on it. They really need to add customization, like make it so that it's not so like linear when it comes to your character progression and what armor sets you wear. Because right now you just roll with 2 armor sets, a heat one and a cold one, and you just throw it on depending on how the weather changes. And it seems like everybody's just running the same thing. Once you get into the end game weapons, everyone seems to be running the same thing. The assault rifle. There's some people using the spear and the sword. I've seen that. I mean, you don't see much of it. I mean, there's no advantage to that. Using a melee weapon in a game like this, there's no real advantage to that, because being able to hit something at a distance is obviously going to be more beneficial to you than standing next to the critter. You know what I mean? And then taking possible damage from it, when you can mitigate your damage by keeping a distance and then waiting for special abilities to happen and just dodge out of them. It's really harder to do that if you're running a melee weapon. So I mean, they might need to do some balancing around the melee weapons, because I felt that, it makes no sense to me. I mean, even just using a cheap old bow, at end game would be better than using a melee weapon at this point. But that's just my personal opinion of it. Well, that's it, folks. That's the roadmap. Again, the publisher, the development team is looking for employees to help them push this product forward. They have admitted they're very overwhelmed, and that they need hands and minds that understand the coding and understand what they're trying to do here to get them to move forward. I'm not knowing, or I don't know when these things are going to actually be implemented. Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? Are we talking 6 months? A year? I don't know. I mean, I've been trying to keep current with what I see on my news feed every day and different gaming publishing sites. And really, everyone seems to be in the dark, other than the fact that the publisher is saying that they're overwhelmed, and they're trying to get their team together so that they can move forward with the roadmap. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. And this has been the Tarkus Zone.